Last time we met, I cautioned you to take baby steps as you start setting boundaries and tell the truth. Well, there comes a time when you need to practice grown-up no's. You need to deal with your number one boundary buster and the people in your life with whom it's difficult to set limits. Straightening out these relationships is a major goal in becoming a boundaried person. Setting important limits with such significant people and setting important limits in significant situations involving key issues in life is the fruit of much work and maturing. And our real target is maturity, the ability to love successfully and work successfully, the goal of becoming more like Christ. Boundary setting is a large part of maturing. We can't really love until we have boundaries. Otherwise, we love out of compliance or guilt. And we can't really be productive at work without boundaries. Otherwise, we're too busy following others' agendas. The goal is to have a character structure that has boundaries and that can set limits on self and others at the appropriate times.
Last time we met, I called you to rejoice when you felt guilty as you took your first steps into a boundaried existence. Now I want to encourage you by telling you that with consistent work and good support, the guilt eventually diminishes. The point comes when we've shifted from listening to our overactive conscience or internal parent and respond instead according to the biblical values of love, responsibility, and forgiveness. These values will have been reinforced by many, many experiences with loving, truthful people who understand boundaries.
Being able to love the boundaries of others is another measurable sign of growth. If we expect others to respect our boundaries, we need to respect theirs for several reasons. First, loving others' boundaries confronts our, and these are crummy words, selfishness and omnipotence. When we are concerned about protecting the treasures of others, we work against the self-centeredness that's part of our fallen nature. Second, loving others' boundaries increases our capacity to care about others. It isn't difficult to love the agreeable parts of people. It's another story, however, when we encounter resistance, confrontation, or separateness. Loving others stretches these muscles.
What did you do the last time you were asked for something you weren't sure you had to give? Even though you were unsure, you either said yes or no. In most cases, the second response, no, is the more mature response. Why? Because it is more responsible to give out of our resources than to promise that which we might not be able to deliver. You see, boundary-injured individuals make promises, and then they do one of two things. One, they resentfully make good, or two, they fail on the promise. Boundary-developed people, however, make good freely and gladly, or they don't promise at all. So learn not to promise too much before you've done our spiritual and emotional calculations. When you're not sure about something, say no. Freeing your no like that also frees your yes, and that's the 10th sign of boundary growth. When you can say no without conflict, you can freely and without resentment and without being motivated by guilt say yes to love and to service.
The last sign of boundary growth we'll look at is the value-driven goal setting that characterizes people with mature boundaries. The ultimate goal of learning boundaries is to free us up to protect, nurture, and develop the lives God has given us stewardship over. Setting boundaries is mature, proactive, initiative-taking. Individuals with mature boundaries have a direction in their lives, a steady moving towards their personal goals. They make choices not on the fear of other people's reactions, but based instead on what they've worked out under God to be important for their life. Their goals are not based on emotion, but values. They plan ahead, and they experience the joy of desires fulfilled. But doesn't life interrupt? Won't there be trials and complications and people wanting me on their track and not God's? Absolutely. The days are truly evil. But the mature person with limits understands and allows for resistance to boundaries and goals. And he or she knows that, should it be needed, a no is waiting inside the heart to be used, not for an attack or to punish, but to protect and develop the time, talents, and treasures that God has allocated to us during our 70 years on this planet.